Okay, we're recording.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Water Policy and Legislation Committee and Special Meeting of the Board of Directors for the West Basin Municipal Water District, October 16th, and it's now 1 o'clock. I call this meeting to order. Mr. General Manager, is there a quorum?
Madam Chair, let me run through roll call. Director Don Deere.
Here.
Chairwoman Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Harold Williams.
Here.
Director Scott Houston. Director Desi Alvarez. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Item 3, public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak?
Madam Chair, we have not received a request for public comment today, though this meeting is being held both virtually and in person. If there's any member of the public that would like to make a public comment that's with us virtually, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. And Madam Chair, I do not see any requests.
Thank you. Item 4, presentations. Are there any presentations?
Staff has no presentations today.
Right. Item 5, action calendar. 5A, please, Mr. Caldwell.
Yes, thank you very much. The item before you is item 5A. It is our only action item for today. This item is related to an amendment to an agreement W2684A5 with the University Enterprises Corporation at California State University, San Bernardino, and agreement W2687A4 with Tree People. For this presentation, we have Tammy Hurley High, our Water Policy and Resources Analyst.
Thank you, Jane. Good afternoon. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Chair Gray, Member Deere, and Director Williams. So this item is being brought to you today to request your consideration of extending 2 agreements that were just mentioned. These are for consultants who are currently implementing DWR's Disadvantaged Community Involvement Grant Program for the Los Angeles Ventura Integrated Regional Water Management Funding Area, also referred to as IRWIM. So these 2 consultants are University Enterprises Corporation at California State University, San Bernardino, and Tree People. So as a bit of background, DWR has awarded funding to the Los Angeles Ventura IRWIM area in order to develop and implement a disadvantaged community involvement program. And this program is to provide technical assistance to enhance communities with fewer resources, along with conducting watershed management studies. So the County of Los Angeles Flood Control District, they are the party that is responsible for managing this grant program. And on behalf of the greater LA IRWIM group, West Basin serves as fiscal intermediary of the grant funds. So this effort also includes retaining, this effort also includes retaining contractors and consultants to implement the program. So under this grant, West Basin is reimbursed for costs associated with contracting services and the fiscal management. So the grant agreement is set to expire December 2023. And on behalf of the IRWIM region, the Los Angeles County Flood Control District is formally requesting a time extension and budget modification for the grant task. And because, because we now have less than 3 months to complete this program, the IRWIM group has agreed that the overall focus is needed to complete the program implementation. And with an extension of an additional 3 months, that would help us to focus on preparing the final report in early 2024. So as a result, the Los Angeles County Flood Control District has been working with DWR to amend the agreement to March 2024. And DWR is receptive to this request. So it is anticipated that DWR will approve this extension. Therefore, this item is being brought to you today, as I mentioned earlier, for consideration of approving the amendments for 2 consultant agreements based on the approval from DWR. The amendments would be extended for an additional 3 months, in addition to incorporating budget modification between the grant agreement tasks. If approved, the consultant agreement would not be executed until formal approval is received from DWR. So as we are nearing completion of this program this month in October, the County Flood Control District is submitting a letter to DWR requesting Amendment 3 for the grant agreement. So the second page of the board memo, on page 4 of the committee packet, it outlines the remaining goals of the grant program for the next few months. June through September, September through October, November through December, and then January through February, March 2024. So between now, what they have been doing since we're already in October, they've been working on putting together an area-wide report. And this includes the 3 regions of Los Angeles County, the Upper Santa Clara River, and the Ventura regions. And these reports highlight the activity that has occurred so far to discuss the strength and then also the challenges and then any recommended improvement. And then they also would like to highlight the need for additional funding for the state's overall IRWIMP grant funding program. So this would allow for, additional programs such as this that can be implemented in the coming years. And so now they're working on preparing that final report, and they're continuing to meet with the consultant to monitor the progress. They would like to draft that final report on November and December, and then January through February, they want to revise and submit a draft report to DWR for comment. And then in March, revise and resubmit the final report to DWR. So regarding the amendment to the current consultant agreement, there are 4 components. The first one is a grant termination deadline extension. It would be from December 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2024. The second item is a work plan modification for activity 2 and activity 4 to add additional language to the grant to include consultants, NGOs and CBOs, and then sub-consultants in these related events when they go to do their community outreach. The third component is the budget modification for activity 3, needs assessment, and activity 4, project development. So what they are proposing to do is to reduce those funds and from activity 3 and reallocate it to activity 4. And then of course the schedule modification. So there's different modifications for activity 1, 2, and 4. And so the next page on the grant, it shows a grant budget table. And this is what it looks like in terms of the dollar amount that they would be reallocating. As I mentioned, DWR, they are receptive to reviewing this formal request. And we are anticipating that they will formally approve the request in the coming months. And so as a result, these consulting agreements that West Basin is currently fiscally administering would need to be amended. So I will read the recommendation and would be happy to address any questions that you may have. So the recommendation is for staff recommends that the board, number 1, authorize the general manager to amend agreement W2684A5 between West Basin Municipal Water District and University Enterprises Corporation and California State University San Bernardino for a time extension through March 31st, 2024, incorporating schedule and budget modifications with the grant as approved by the Department of Water Resources. And second, to authorize the general manager to amend agreement W267A4 between West Basin Municipal Water District and Tree People for a time extension through March 31st, 2024, incorporating schedule and budget modifications with the grant as approved by the Department of Water Resources. And thank you for the opportunity. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right.
No questions,
Chairman.
Madam Chair. This is Director Deere. I move
Yes.
the recommendation.
All right, I do have questions. Any questions first? But thank you, Director Deere. Tammy, I'm trying to understand the grant because it says for disadvantaged communities. So I think you mentioned areas that have to do with water, doing, I guess, planting trees or whatever in terms of those areas. So how does it impact the disadvantaged communities in our service areas?
So yes, that is a good question. There are regional-wide in Los Angeles, Ventura County, and Upper Santa Clara River areas. They have, through this grant program, it allows for the consultant to go out to the field to do a needs assessment to identify where there is a need to improve water resources management. And by identifying those needs, they can in the future apply for grant funded program. There is a lot more detail. There's been so much activity on this grant program, including West Basin Service Area. And I would like to bring information to this committee next month in terms of what activity has been prepared so far. And they have already produced, like I mentioned, a report, a needs assessment. And I think that can really provide the board with a lot more information as far as to the level of engagement that this grant program has brought to West Basin and other funding areas.
Well, you're asking, I mean, it's on the agenda to transfer the needs assessment money to item 4. So and I know this is kind of after the fact, but I'm interested in, as well as anyone else, how this grant program that I guess we're administering, or what is our responsibility for this program, period? What is our responsibility?
Yeah, so our responsibility is a fiscal administrator. It's on behalf of the Greater Los Angeles Integrated Regional Water Management Program. So we are not necessarily the program manager. It's really the Greater Los Angeles Funding Group and the Los Angeles Ventura area. That's who the state of California granted the funds to, so that they could be the project manager to implement this program.
I got that, but if we're the fiscal administrator, that means we pay the bills? Is that what that means? Tell me what that means.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. What that means is we are managing the funds that are being paid to the consultant. And this is how we are working together closely with the Los Angeles County Flood Control District. They are the project manager. So they are meeting with the consultants and reviewing all of these program activities. And when they submit their invoices for work that has been done, then the county would approve it. West Basin is just like a fiscal intermediary because we will, advance those funds. We would get those funds from DWR and then pay the invoices as they are approved by the county.
Yeah. Thank you, Tammy. I know that's what we do, but my point is, if we're responsible for paying the bill only because the State Department or that other group is using us for that, we should understand what that program is and how it impacts West Basin service area. Because if we're administering fiscally the money for it and we don't understand it and how it benefits our constituents, it's kind of troubling, or to me, that we don't really know what the impact is. And I see Tree People as one of those, I guess, organizations involved. I know their primary goal is to plant trees, which is great, which could be planted in areas in our area. But when you talk about flood control, that's a different area. So can you bring back, that needs assessment and what they did and how they got to that point and how it impacts our community, West Basin community?
Yes, I will. Absolutely. Yes. And there's a lot of additional components that Tree People is involved with, similar to the University of San Bernardino. in terms of their extra effort to do community engagement and community involvement. They've held several meetings, to identify the need to better improve the disadvantaged area, again, region-wide, not just Los Angeles and West Basin service area, but other service areas as well, only because this was a combined funding opportunity that they were able to apply for several years ago. But it definitely will bring back more information to give you more detail as far as the level of impact that this has positively impacted the communities, including West Basin.
And also what the goal is, what their specific charge is and so forth, because again, anytime we're responsible, I guess we were chosen to be the fiscal administrator, but why are we doing this if if it's not benefiting our region? I would think that they would identify some other areas. So that's my point I'm making.
Right, got it, I understand. Absolutely, thank you.
All right, thank you. And Director Deere agrees to move it forward with that caveat that we have more information about it moving forward.
Yes.
EJ, did you hear that too?
I did. Point, just to clarify, the West Basin Municipal Water District does sit on the leadership or executive committee of the Greater LA County Integrated Regional Water Management. We actually chair the South Bay region, and we have been involved in this program. We're very familiar with the value that this specific program, the Disadvantaged Community Involvement Grant Program, has had on the Greater LA County region. And really what we're trying to do is get out with some outreach and education so that the disadvantaged communities are more active and proactive in integrated regional water management. It's better to understand the value that the Greater LA County program provides the region, and it allows them to get a little bit more involved as far as getting their applications submitted for potential large grants. So we've been doing this now for several years. We're very familiar as far as the value that it provides the region, and especially our service area. So we look forward to organizing kind of a more detailed briefing in the coming month.
Thank you, EJ. And what I heard you say, it's a regional goal rather than a specific to West Basin, but it would be nice to hear specifically, or if there's some specific areas that are in our area that you could enlighten us about. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Tammy. And we've already moved it forward with the recommendation. Staff recommendation. Correct, Director Deere?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Can we go to the next item? I think it's information.
Yes, Madam Chair, the next item that we have for you is item 6A. It's related to a request from one of our West Basin directors. We're going to bring this back each quarter. And so for this month, we do have our quarterly Safe Clean Water Program update. And for this presentation, we have Matt Bay, our Manager of Water Policy and Resources Development.
Thank you, EJ, and good afternoon, Chairwoman Gray and directors. We're now on page 62 of the agenda packet. And as EJ mentioned, there was some interest by our board to have more of a regular update on the Safe Clean Water Program, which is the funding program established by the LA County Measure W Stormwater Funding Program. So going forward, staff will be providing a quarterly update on this program at this committee. It may include updates from me since I will be attending most of those meetings. It could also include LA County staff or the watershed coordinators. We'll just kind of look at what's going on and bring in information that we hope is of value to the board to hear. So as a reminder, West Basin staff actively participates in both the South and Central Santa Monica Bay Watershed Area Steering Committees. Our General Manager, EJ Caldwell, is the primary member of those committees, and I serve as the alternate to him. South Santa Monica Bay meetings are held at our Edward C. Little facility, while the Central Santa Monica Bay meetings are held at the City Hall building in Culver City. I did provide an update to this committee a few months back, so today's update will mostly summarize the last few months of meetings. This year, the watershed area steering committees transitioned out of virtual meetings. And so since April or May, all of the meetings have been held in person. And one thing to note is that both of the steering committees that were involved in have canceled some of their meetings this year over the summer, but I do expect them to settle into more of a regular schedule in the coming months. So I'll start with an update on the South Santa Monica Bay Steering Committee. This area covers Inglewood to the north, Carson to the east, the Port of LA to the south, and the beach cities to the west. This really covers a big portion of our West Basin service area. This committee is chaired by Craig Cadwalader, who was successfully reappointed to the chairperson role in August. And the vice chair is currently Geraldine Trivedi from Redondo Beach, who is essentially a representative of the beach city's environmental watershed group. That role may switch back and forth between her and Doug Kraus from Hermosa Beach this year. The July meeting was canceled, so I'll cover the last 2 months of meetings for August and September. So in addition to choosing the chair and vice chair, some of the following items were discussed. So on August 8th, all 9 of the fiscal year 23-24 stormwater investment plans were adopted by the Board of Supervisors, the LA County Board of Supervisors. This includes the investment plans from both South Santa Monica Bay and Central Santa Monica Bay. And the application deadline for round 5, which is fiscal year 24-25, was on July 31st. And for South Santa Monica Bay, 3 infrastructure programs, 1 technical resources program, and 3 scientific studies were submitted to the steering committee for evaluation. The South Santa Monica Bay Watershed Coordinator, Nancy Schroeds, provided an update to the board or to the committee on the outreach and engagement efforts conducted recently. These coordinators maintain a very busy schedule of meetings, events, and educational opportunities that occur throughout our service area. We were also provided with an overview of the Watershed Area Regional Program Progress Report, also known as the WARP report. These reports are used to develop the biannual report. Our committee also approved the FY 23-24 Strategic Outreach and Engagement Plan. And we also received the FY 22-23 Regional Quarterly Report Summary with project managers for all the different projects in our region being present on that call to answer any questions about the in-progress projects. This included project updates from many of the areas inside of the West Basin service area. Watershed coordinators also presented project summaries for the 3 infrastructure program projects that were submitted to the South Santa Monica Bay Steering Committee for FY 24-25. Those projects include the Torrance Airport Stormwater Basin Project, the Stevenson Park Stormwater Capture Project in Carson, as well as the Dominguez Channel Parkway BMP's prioritization project in Carson. Steering committee members voted to send all 3 of those projects to the scoring committee. So they'll go ahead and score those projects and then send them back to the steering committee for further evaluation. That will likely occur in early 2024. And the October 18th meeting was canceled, which was going to be held on Wednesday of this week. So the November meeting is likely when our committee will hear the technical resources program projects that will be presented to us. I'll move over to provide an update on the Central Santa Monica Bay Steering Committee. This area covers the more northern parts of our service area. So El Segundo to the south, Los Angeles, parts of Los Angeles to the north and east, and then Topanga Canyon area to the west. Culver City is at the very center of this watershed area. This steering committee is co-chaired by Susie Santolina of the City of LA and Rita Campaleth of LA County, who were both reappointed to their co-chair roles in August. The September meeting was canceled, so I will cover the August and October meetings. Our general manager attended the October meeting just last week, and then included the following discussion items. Note there's some overlap between the 2 steering committees in terms of updates, so I'll try to only summarize those that aren't redundant. So the round 5 call for projects in central Santa Monica Bay resulted in 1 infrastructure program project, 1 technical resources program project, and 3 scientific studies. The infrastructure project is the Baldwin Vista Green Streets project, which I believe is the second time that that project has been submitted, so they're giving it another go. This project was voted on by EJ and the other members to move to the scoring committee. The technical resources project is called the Sky Sanctuaries, the San Vicente Streetscape Plaza, and then the 3 scientific studies include BMPs for maintaining stormwater dry well capacity that will be done by the Cal Poly Pomona, the street sweeper effectiveness testing, which is the City of LA, and pollutant source characterization study, also the City of LA. The watershed coordinators provided us with the fiscal year 23-24 strategic outreach and engagement plan. And like in the South Santa Monica Bay, the Central Santa Monica Bay watershed coordinators are very busy conducting outreach activities. And the members approved the outreach plan in October, just this last week. The watershed coordinators were also encouraged by the committee to work with their counterparts at the other watershed areas to establish contact with the team in place for the 2028 Olympics to explore cost-sharing opportunities for stormwater capture projects ahead of the 2028 games. LA County provided a program progress report, also just like in the South Santa Monica Bay, and this first report will cover projects from rounds 1 and 2. The round 5 infrastructure projects, feasibility studies, and scientific studies will be presented on at future steering committee meetings. That concludes my update. Please let me know if you have any questions, and now or in the future, if you have specific topics that you'd like to hear from us about the Safe Clean Water Program, we're happy to report back on those. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions, Director Deere Williams?
Yes.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Yes,
Item.
can I don't think.
Madam Chair, Director Williams had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Director Williams. I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Well, it's not a question, but I guess it is. Concerning the street sweeping operation, what exactly is that?
I would have to get more information for you on that, Director Williams. I know that's a scientific study that they'll be looking at that. So it's more of just I guess at this point, more of a feasibility or technical study where they'll be exploring that. But I'll be happy to get more information from you. I don't think we've been provided with that information as a committee yet, but we'll probably get that here in the next couple of months. So I might be able to get something for you sooner if I can, but if not, I would have it probably for the next.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, Matt. Anything else? Question?
No,
All right.
Chairwoman Gray. That's all.
Thank you so much. Can we go to the next item, Matt?
Yes, Madam Chair, the next item we have is our monthly legislative update for the month of September. For this presentation, we have Matt Bay.
Thank you, EJ. So I'm now on page 64 of the agenda packet. And I'll begin with the state legislative update. So please refer to page 66 of the agenda, where the Niemela Pappas and Associates end of session report begins. And as you'll see, if you look through this report, this past year was kind of jam-packed with major legislative issues that impacted our state and our region specifically. And we're expecting many of those issues to carry forward into the next year. So it's really critical for West Basin and the water industry to remain highly engaged on these issues, and we certainly plan to do so. So as you may recall, Emily Pappas and Jamie Miner from NPA joined us at last month's board meeting to provide an end of session update. I'm not going to reiterate most of those issues today, but I will again note that this was a very busy year for us and our state advocacy team, and we really have no plans to slow down. So while the months between the end of the session, which we're in now, and the start of the next session in January are often a time to pause and reflect, but there are several priority areas where West Basin and NPA will remain actively engaged this fall and winter. So West Basin and NPA are already beginning to discuss and plan for next year's Sacramento advocacy trip in the spring. And we will work together to ensure that we make the trip as successful and impactful as possible. And since NPA's update on September 25th, all of the bills passed by the legislature have now either been signed or vetoed by Governor Newsom. October 14th was the deadline for him to act on all of the bills that were sent to his desk. So to start with, I want to let you know of a big one, that AB 1572. This was a bill that would ban the irrigation of non-functional turf using potable water at CII and HOA properties. Was signed by the governor on just this past Saturday during water harvest, which was the last day that he could do so. This was a bill that was supported by our board and also co-sponsored by Metropolitan. The bill will be implemented in different sectors, in our city properties, in our commercial areas, in our HOAs, over the next 5 to 10 years. And West Basin staff is and will continue to be actively exploring programs and funding sources to help the region, not only in being aware of this new law, that's a big piece of it, but also to consider turf removal projects that can result in the creation of long-term sustainable landscapes. As has been mentioned in previous committee updates, the proposed climate bond, which again is about $15 billion they're looking at right now, has been deferred to next year, with any measure likely to go before the voters at the November 2024 general election. West Basin and NPA were very active in this area in 2023, having worked with our coalition partners, Aqua and Water Reuse, to lobby for increased funding levels for recycled water, conservation, and groundwater in the proposal. West Basin was also able to get language for funding of existing recycled water infrastructure into the water reuse letter to the legislature. This was important because this is something that hasn't been funded in the past, but it's important for our programs. So it's our hope that those requests will be included in the final version of the climate bond. And West Basin and NPA have also been meeting with Senator Allen's office on multiple occasions to discuss the concepts in the proposal. We're planning to hold additional meetings with the author's office to advocate for more recycled water funding and to include funding for the existing infrastructure. Another area where we and NPA will continue to be actively involved going into next year is in workforce development legislation. AB 735 was the bill introduced this year that was supported by West Basin, but it didn't move forward because of its potential costs. Staff will be working with NPA and the author's office, which is Assemblymember Berman, to determine whether the bill will be introduced. And if not, then West Basin will be looking to explore the potential for having one of our own delegation members introduce an updated version of the bill that might have more success in moving forward. Other bills of interest that didn't make it through the legislature this year, but which could come back next year, include AB 1573 and AB 366. AB 1573 deals with water conservation and the inclusion of native plants, a certain percentage of native plants in a project in some of those public spaces. That bill was really amended significantly, and so the author chose not to go forward with that, but could bring it back next year. That was Assemblymember Friedman. So this is one where we didn't have a position, but we have been closely tracking it. And then SB 366 relates to water supply targets for the state, including recycled water and groundwater. This bill, which our board did support, may also come back next year as a study bill, is what we're hearing. So there are some changes that could happen to it if we see it again next year. Another bill that by the governor just last week that we didn't have a position on, but which directly impacts one of our retail agencies, El Segundo, was AB 1216. This bill will require what's called fence line air quality monitoring at the Hyperion facility beginning in 2025. So that was a good win for El Segundo residents who have been dealing with some of those issues. Another bill that we didn't have a position on, but that we've been watching very closely, was SB 676 by Senator Allen. This bill was signed by the governor, and it will prohibit a city or county from enforcing an ordinance or regulation that prohibits the installation of drought-tolerant landscaping using living plant material. It would also specify that drought-tolerant landscaping does not include installation of synthetic or artificial turf. And then one final legislative note is that Governor Newsom also signed SB 659, which would establish the California Water Supply Solutions Act of 2023 to require DWR as part of the California Water Plan update to provide actionable recommendations to develop additional groundwater recharge opportunities throughout the state. On the regulatory side, the State Water Board held a public hearing on October 4th to discuss the proposed conservation as a way of life regulations. This topic, I can say, has really stirred up the water community over the past several months. Our staff has attended literally dozens of meetings in the last couple of months to discuss our concerns and to go over suggested edits to the draft regulations that could be shared with the State Water Board. I believe the October 4th public hearing lasted about 12 hours, which really tells you how significant this is to our industry and our retailers. The deadline to submit written comments is actually tomorrow, and West Basin did join a coalition of agencies that provided comments and recommendations to the State Water Board via a letter sent out by Aqua. We also reviewed and provided feedback on a letter by Water Reuse that focuses more specifically on the recycled water issues that are in the regs. So this issue is by no means over, but we are now somewhat at the mercy of the State Water Board in terms of what they include in the final version of the regulations. And I've mentioned this before, but our primary concern now is to educate all of our retail suppliers about the pending regulations, make sure that they're aware of those and ready to go, and to continue exploring programs and funding sources that we can use to help our retailers in complying with those regulations in the coming years. I can definitely assure you that more information on this topic will be shared with this committee and the board at future committee meetings. With that said, I encourage you to read through the entirety of NPA's written report. There's a lot of good information in there that relates to both water and non-water issues relevant to the state. And once again, we've finished an incredibly busy year, but next year really could be even busier with the second year of the session, with the climate bonds that we'll be working on, all the elections that are happening, state budget issues, all the conservation bills, workforce development, and other important topics that need our attention. So that concludes my state report, and I'd be happy to take any questions from you before I move on to the federal update.
Okay, Matt, Director Darrell Williams, are there any questions on the state report?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairwoman Gray. I am now on page 95 of the agenda packet, which is where the Van Scoyoc Associates report begins. And much like on the state side, we're finishing up an incredibly busy and productive year on federal issues. And to start on a more serious note, I know that everyone is aware of the passing of Senator Dianne Feinstein, who was a tremendous advocate of California water issues during her time in the Senate. Over her tenure, she introduced and successfully navigated and advanced multiple major legislative proposals that had significant positive impacts on California's water supply reliability, as well as the sustainability of the environment. Several days following the death of Senator Feinstein, LaFonza Butler was sworn into the Senate to fulfill the remainder of the late senator's term. Butler previously served as a senior advisor on Kamala Harris's 2020 presidential campaign, in addition to many other accomplishments. So the current circumstances of her taking over means that there will now be two Senate races next year. One on the 2024 primary ballot in the spring, and another on the 2024 general ballot in the fall. The primary election will determine who will fill the seat between like a 2-month period between the general election and January 5th, 2025, while the general election will determine who will serve that full 6-year term that begins in 2025. And while it looked like Congress was headed for a shutdown on September 30th, President Biden signed a short-term continuing resolution that will keep the government funded through November 17th. Congress will now have the next month to negotiate a full spending package of the fiscal year 2024 bills, which were previously passed in both the Senate and House earlier this year. If they're unable to do so, they will have to seek another continuing resolution. Otherwise, the government again could be at risk of having a shutdown. And then on October 3rd, as you probably have heard, another major action occurred in the House when for the first time ever, the House voted to remove the current Speaker of the House, who was Kevin McCarthy, a Republican from the Bakersfield area of California. As of today, I don't believe a replacement speaker has been elected. However, I think what I read most recently was that a vote could occur tomorrow, but we'll have to see. As you remember, last time the process played out over a number of days, so it could be some time. Much like with our state advocacy team, VSA has been very active in supporting West Basin this year, and we expect 2024 to be very busy with them keeping us apprised and involved on a number of major issues. As you heard in last month's VSA end-of-year report, these key issues include 2024 federal elections, PFAS and other emerging water quality issues, expected actions and progress hopefully being made on the Colorado River negotiations and EIS process, additional Army Corps and U.S. Bureau of Rec funding opportunities as a result of federal appropriations and the bipartisan infrastructure law, and of course, federal legislation in key areas such as recycled water, water quality, water affordability, and others. We're also beginning our initial discussions with VSA for West Basin Spring 2024 advocacy trip to Washington, D.C., which will be another great opportunity for us to meet with our delegation and with other key officials from the Army Corps and Bureau of Rec. We'll be sure to engage with the board in the next couple of months as we consider dates, topics of importance, and other details that will be needed to ensure a successful trip. And with that, that concludes my federal report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you.
Director,
Okay.
any questions?
Good report. Thank you very much.
Matt, great report, very comprehensive, so thank you very much. Next item, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. The next two items we have for you are information items related to our advocacy teams, both in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. So this next item is specifically item 6C is related to state legislative advocacy services. And for this presentation, we have Matt Bay.
Thank you, EJ. I'm now on page 99 of the packet. And as I hope you're aware, West Basin is very fortunate to have a great team working on our behalf in Sacramento. With all the major legislative and regulatory issues that are taking place in the state, the size of and with the complexity of California, especially as it relates to water issues, as you know well, it would be extremely difficult for staff just on our own to stay on top of everything without having someone represent our interests kind of at the ground level in the Capitol. At last month's board meeting, you heard from NPA about some of the issues they're engaging on our behalf. And those just really kind of scratch the surface in terms of the overall scope of issues that we must navigate over the next few years. So as we move into the next year, some of these state issues will become even more important to our district as we seek to represent the interests of our communities and to chart the direction of our recycled water, conservation, engineering and operations, outreach, and other programs. Obviously, there's some major projects being developed by Metropolitan in Los Angeles that have the potential to greatly impact our organization in the coming years. Pure Water Southern California and Operation Next will likely shape the region's water reliability picture for the next 25 plus years. And so it'll be up to us, our board, our staff, and our state advocacy team to engage with our delegation, with our industry partners and coalitions and other stakeholders to ensure that we're well prepared for whatever comes next. So our purpose in bringing this item to you today is twofold. First, our current agreement for state advocacy services is set to expire at the end of this year on December 31st. And so we're at a point where we would like to establish a new agreement that would begin first thing next year. Second, while this is a committee and board-driven decision, staff feels it is important to note that we strongly support a continued relationship between NPA and the district in terms of representing our state legislative affairs in Sacramento. In my legislative update, I talked about some of the areas where we are and will continue to be active going into this next year. And NPA has really been walking side by side with us as a valuable partner in these areas. Our advocacy efforts would definitely not be as fruitful as they have been without their support, expertise, and the relationships that they have built up in the Capitol. In the memo, beginning on page 101, I have included a brief summary of some of the state legislative highlights and achievements that are possible, have been made possible due to the work of our state advocacy team. Again, this is only a partial list, but it shows some of those key issues that we'll be working on next year. I also included a summary of the ongoing support and services that NPA has provided to West Basin since 2019. As you'll see, there's a lot of day-to-day work that they do on our behalf, and that we would expect our state advocacy team to do on our behalf. Before I turn it over to the committee for further discussion or questions, I just want to mention a couple of other points. First, we have been in contact with NPA about the expiration of the agreement, and they have expressed a couple of things to us. One, they would absolutely appreciate and welcome the opportunity to continue working on our behalf, if that's something that staff and the board would like to do. And two, they've also said that they're very much willing to maintain the monthly agreement amount at the existing level. If so, that would mean that their rate has essentially stayed flat for more than 4 years. But they are willing to do that. Second, EJ and I are both in favor of establishing the new agreement with NPA for our state legislative advocacy services. We have a great working relationship with Emily and Jamie. We feel they have a great understanding of our needs. They have great relationships with our delegation. And as you heard, there's just a lot of issues that will be carrying over into the next year that would really benefit from having a consistent and plugged in advocate who's already working on our behalf. With that said, staff would definitely appreciate hearing your thoughts on our state advocacy efforts and what you would like to see moving forward. If you do decide as a committee that you're satisfied with the work that NPA is doing on our behalf and would be in favor of entering into a new agreement with them, staff would plan to bring back an action item at the board meeting next week. But at this time, please let myself and EJ know if you have any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions, comments?
No, none. Very good. Thank you.
If we do develop some questions later on, when can we come back and present those?
Director Williams, the way we've done this in the past is we come to the committee seeking feedback from the committee and board. At the direction of the committee and board, we typically bring this back as an action item, which would then be heard by the full board at a board meeting. So it would be our normal process as far as approving an agreement. The board would obviously make that decision. But we were seeking some feedback today so we can begin the process of working on an agreement if that's the direction of the committee.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Well,
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, Madam
I
Chair,
got
can you hear us?
disconnected. I got
Oh, okay.
disconnected, sorry. That's what happened. I'm back. Any questions or comments regarding that item?
we just did a
Director Williams had a question. I want to make sure that I answered his question, or if you wanted additional information.
So if we do develop questions later on as board members, when do we, because no questions today, but a couple of days or a week or so, learning more about what's going on, would have more questions.
We would have this on our board meeting agenda, which would take place on Monday, so you could obviously ask questions then. But again, if the board wants to discuss it on Monday and then give us direction, we're happy to do it that way as well.
Okay.
Director Deere, any comments? I do have comments, though. Director Deere?
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Okay, my comment at the committee level is that I think both companies have done well in terms of supporting the state and the federal efforts that we have for West Basin. And I really also defer to staff. Staff works directly with them, and I've witnessed their work in terms of when we were going to Sacramento and DC, they were able to get us meetings with a lot of legislators on the state and federal level. So I do support moving forward with them. So I just want to give that comment to staff this morning and to the general manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would it be, in hearing what you said, would you like us to convert this item to an action item and bring it back to the full board?
Yeah, I think we need to make a decision on it. Director Deere is okay with being converted
Yeah, I
to
think-
an action item for
I
consideration.
agree.
Is that okay?
Yes.
He agreed. So if you can bring that back, it's an action item.
Happy to do so.
And that's for both companies, right? State
Yeah.
and federal.
That is correct. And that's our next item with 6D. So I don't know, Matt, if you have anything that you wanted to add to that.
No, I would just say that, yeah, we feel very strongly about our VSA team as well. I won't go through kind of the summary, but yeah, that's the same thing that we're asking for the federal and the state. We feel very comfortable in moving forward with VSA, but obviously we want to hear what the committee and the board has to say about that. But we would definitely be in support at the staff level of moving that to an action item for next Monday, if that's the will of this committee.
And let me check again with Director Deere. That's okay to bring it back
Yes,
to
it
an
is.
action item for the state and federal, correct? Direct?
Agree.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thanks very much. So both companies, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Got it. Okay. All right. Is there another item?
There is,
Thank you,
it's
Matt.
our final item on the information calendar. It's item 6E. It's our monthly Metropolitan Water District program update. And for this presentation, we have Tammy Hurley-High, our water policy and resources analyst.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon again. So this is a monthly update on Metropolitan Water District activities, and included in this month's report is a brief summary on Colorado River resources, the climate adaptation master plan for water, the draft long-range finance plan needs assessment, future board items, and then also lastly, charts illustrating the water supply conditions. So yeah, beginning on page 113 of the committee packet, we'll start with the Colorado River resources. So earlier this year, we've been providing updates to you pertaining to potential changes that would impact the Colorado River operations under the current 2007 interim guidelines that will expire in 2025. There's also been activity pertaining to the post-2026 operation guideline. So last June, Reclamation initiated that environmental impact statement process to develop the post-2026 operational guidelines. That EIS is expected to be out at the end of 2024. The elements of the EIS will determine what can be considered in the action alternatives of the final operational plan. So several letters have been submitted to Reclamation. A letter was also submitted to Reclamation by Metropolitan and the Southern Nevada Water Authority and the Central Arizona Water Conservation District. So their letter had stated support for the other letters that were submitted, and they also requested that the scope of the EIS and proposed federal action would include several areas that involve, they're highlighted here in this report. First is to ensure sufficient water for public health and safety, to protect existing intentionally created surplus supplies, provide for continued incentive to add conserved water to Lake Mead, to address the imbalance between supplies and demand on the Colorado River Basin, and then to also include a framework that would incentivize voluntary conservation augmentation, and water exchanges. So the state of California and the Colorado River Board have been holding meetings to come up with a California proposal. And the basin states, they're meeting this month to try and see if they can come together with a 7-state consensus that can be developed for the EIS. So sometime next spring will be the time when the basin states will need to come up with a consensus-based alternative to the draft EIS at the end of 2024. Metropolitan will be scheduling a board workshop in December, and they will be providing a staff update of activities, and they want to discuss areas that are the most important to Metropolitan and to the region, and then receive input and feedback from the board as this process continues. So we'll continue to keep you updated on that. Secondly, regarding the Colorado River Resources, regarding the Inflation Reduction Act, the drought mitigation funding. So in July, Reclamation had sent a letter to Lower Basin Colorado River contract and entitlement holders requesting proposals for the Inflation Reduction Act drought mitigation funding. And the proposals are intended to result in water conservation that benefits the Lower Colorado River system. And this is the next phase of the Lower Colorado River Conservation Program, using what they refer to as Bucket 2 funding. The federal funding program is for the Colorado River users. It's intended to provide new opportunities to fund system conservation and efficiencies. And Metropolitan staff did submit a $420 million grant proposal under the Lower Basin Conservation and Efficiency Program. That proposal included improvements to sustainability of the Lower Basin, transformation of landscapes across the region, and to support disadvantaged communities. Next item is the Climate Adaptation Master Plan for Water. Metropolitan staff has continued to engage with their board and their member agencies toward development of a comprehensive climate master plan for water. It's also referred to as CAMP, but a lot of the directors refer to that acronym. There have been several meetings in different committees and subcommittees. They've held panel discussions with industry experts to share climate mitigation actions that other agencies have embarked on. And what will be included in the coordination of this CAMP process is phase 2 implementation of the IRP. And they will be transitioning to a task force for the CAMP process. What they are also now introducing into this process is the draft long-range financial plan needs assessment. And the purpose of that draft needs assessment is to establish what the rate impacts would be on various resource development scenarios, on the capital financing, and then funding tools that could be available. So that kind of segues into the next item, which is a draft long-range finance plan needs assessment. This item was brought to the Metropolitan Finance Committee as an information item and to also receive input and feedback from the board members. The 2023 needs assessment is the initial phase of the long-range financial plan process. And a copy of this draft document can be accessed online, and a website link has also been included in the memo. So for Metropolitan's long-range finance plan itself, it is a multi-year, multi-phased approach to address new capital investments over the next 10 years. And the needs assessment report is designed to provide a high-level financial analysis of rate impacts under various resource development scenarios, to highlight primary capital financing and funding methods Metropolitan has, to introduce potential financial tools that could become components of a tailored financial strategy, and to produce information for capital markets that illustrate Metropolitan's key policies. So this needs assessment is established to begin policy discussions among the board that will lead to development of that final 10-year long-range financial plan. And right now in this needs assessment, with the way the process is beginning, Metropolitan staff has put forth 3 questions for the Metropolitan Board to read and discuss and provide feedback on. And those questions are also highlighted in this board report. And the first one is, what is an acceptable average rate increase on full service water sales through the year 2032 to fund water portfolio projects or conservation to address expected impacts of climate change? What is the desired estimated allocation among the optimal portfolio of water supplies within the acceptable average rate increases? And the third question is, what alternative financing approaches interest the board either on a singular or a combination to address funding of future capital investments? So Metropolitan Plan, their staff plans to have a long-range finance plan prepared during next fiscal year, 2024-25. And at that time, they will integrate capital projects and then recommend funding strategies. So this will be a very good discussion of interest that we will continue to follow and then bring back to you with more information as well as that further progresses. And then next is the board agenda look ahead. So highlighted here are a few discussion items that were key discussion items this month. The first was to authorize funding for round 3 of the Future Supply Action Program. This item was heard during last week's committee and board meeting, and Metropolitan will be implementing this program in the coming months. They did approve this. And this is another item we will be bringing back to you for more information as well. Next is the Finance Committee and additional board members received information on the Pure Water Cost Recovery Alternative. So this item was also shared at West Basin Caucus meeting recently last month in September, at the September 6th meeting. And then the review of the 2023 long-range finance plan needs assessment, as I recently mentioned. And this item was presented as information to the board. We are looking forward to inviting Metropolitan staff to join the next West Basin Caucus, the meeting in November, so that they can provide more information on how this is being presented as well. So the West Basin board has a better understanding of it. Also included in this report is board action from last month in September. And then lastly, the water supply update. Towards the end of the committee packet, there's 2 pages of those graphs. It's a pretty short update I'll provide here, but just looking at that gray shaded area for Diamond Valley Lake is shown in the middle of the page. That reservoir continues to go up. It's currently 80% full. Metropolitan is going to continue filling this local storage reservoir. And Metropolitan total, their estimate for the total dry year storage will be a record level of 3.4 million acre feet at the end of this year. And the month of October marks the beginning of a new year. The winter storms this past year provided a huge recovery to the state water project supplies. And Lake Oroville records did recover, as we know, and the single biggest increase in the state water project's history by gaining more than 2.5 million acre feet of water. And that was between November 2022 and June 2023. So that wraps up my update. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this information to you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Despite the fact that we've got all this water, we're still concerned about conservation for the future. Isn't that right? We're expecting, we're not going to have these good water years every year like we have had this year.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
I'm telling people in my public statements, water board is we're still conserving water, despite the fact it's raining.
Never ending, always. Thank you.
That's a good point, Director Deere. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Tammy, anything else?
Oh, no, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that report. Very comprehensive. EJ, is there anything else?
Madam Chair, that concludes the information calendar, and we do not have any closed session items.
Okay, director's comments next, correct?
Correct.
Director Deere,
No further comments, thank you.
thank you. Director Williams,
Well, thank you.
all right. And I want to thank staff for all the reports this morning and the general manager. Thank you so much. They're always very good reports. So thank you so much. So with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you again, board members and staff. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.